Hi, my name is Kamaldeen Akorde, and I'm the president of USNDA. And today, Dr. Darwin, where Dr. Darwin speaks, has, joined us today on for a virtual Q&A.
Everyone, I'm Nisha and I'm the secretary for USNDA. So the reason I chose dentistry was because I really liked that it combined like artistry and science into one. And I think it's so amazing how we can like be both the person who diagnoses a disease, but also the person who treats it. So yeah, that's why I chose dentistry.
Hello everyone, I'm Ainsley Woodward. I'm a D1 here at the University of Michigan School of Dentistry. I was once in your all's position in USNDA about a couple of years ago. I graduated in 2021 with my Bachelor's of Science in Biopsychology, Cognition, and Neuroscience, go BCN. And I also finished up a master's program here at the Dental School in Oral Health Sciences Department just in 2022. So I'm very fortunate to hold this position. I know you all were familiar with Matt over the past 2 semesters. And I'm just excited to be a part of this cohort of students. It's like I said, it's been a pleasure to be part of the USNDA during my time here. And now I feel like it's time for me to pay it back and help you all build this program, expand your membership, and also just have a more cohesive connection between our chapter, the SNDA, and your all's chapter, the USNDA. So I know you all received the email from Kamal just a few days ago about the mentorship opportunity that we have for you upcoming. So I'm excited about that, and you should hear more about that sometime next week. And I hear it's roughly about 20 of you all who are interested, so I'm excited about that. So just keep your eye open for that.
And today, Dr. Darwin also brought in a special guest, Malachi.
Of course, thank you so much. It's definitely a pleasure to be here. My name is Malachi Wright. I'm a recent graduate of Towson University. I graduated in December with my my bachelor's degree in biology, molecular biology, and bioinformatics. And biochemistry. I will be attending the University of Maryland School of Dental Medicine. I recently just got out of the cycle for dental school, and I'm glad that you all are here tonight. It's gonna be a great time. We're gonna give you all some valuable information, and I think that's pretty much it.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you all for attending. I know you guys, everyone is busy with school schedules, exams, dinner time, wanting to relax, probably want to watch some Netflix and chill too, I'm sure, getting ready. But so it's important to recognize you all for coming and attending tonight's Q&A session. This session is for you guys. This session is for you guys and gals and guys. There's some questions that have been submitted beforehand, and it's a long list. So I think the group is seriously considering doing a part 2. This will be part 1 tonight so that we can cover half of the questions and then be able to break out into a more open Q&A session in case those that are on the call. I see Jason, I see Holly, I see Mimi, I see Tess, Zach, Soraya, and some other people that are on the call. In case you guys have questions, we're going to block off some time for you guys to ask those questions as well. And again, like I said, this information is for you. You guys will get some information that will be very helpful as part of your journey, but also, as stated, you've got 2 dental students / incoming dental students that are on the webinar as well. Strongly recommend that you listen to what they say, take some notes, and then look at those notes, take down their contact information, and utilize them as a resource. All right. They have gone through what you guys are getting ready to go through, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel with regards to how to navigate through this process. All right. Because it is a process, and it's a process that can that's long and that can beat you up along the way. But I always tell people, if I can do it as an architecture major in undergrad, not a lot of science background, very minimal. If I can do it, you guys can do it. So let's get into those questions. Come on, you want to start off with those questions? We'll start off, I guess, maybe the first 7. We'll start with those, and then we'll dive into some answers.
Question number 1 is, how many dental schools should I apply to? Like, what's a good number?
Oh, starting off with some fire, right? Well, first of all, you guys, if you didn't know, there's almost 70 dental schools now. 70. I think there was, and Malachi and Ansley can also chime in with regards to this. It's about 66, and over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been 3 or 4 that have either just started, implemented, or just took in their first class, or there are a couple schools coming, like Arkansas. There's a new dental school coming in Arkansas. There's still some new talk about a second dental school in Virginia. There's a new school in California, as if California needed another dental school, because they have about 4 already, if not maybe even 5. So there's a lot of schools, right? As you are looking at your schools, one of the recommendations will be based off of, or how many schools you should apply to, it should be based off of what you're looking for, right? I would strongly not recommend just applying to 30 and 40 dental schools just to apply and hope that where you apply to sticks, right? Because many schools are public, many schools are private. And with those two distinctions comes a lot more money as far as tuition. And there's considerations for in-state and out-of-state students as well. So you really need to look at, or at least develop a list of things that you're looking for in schools before you start trying to figure out how many schools I should apply to. And I want to add to that, you know, that number may depend on your preference and things that you envision in the next 10 years, right? 4 years at dental school, maybe a year or 2 in residency, and then you're going to be launching your careers immediately after that. So some questions you need to ask before you pick a number of schools to apply to is, where do you envisioning yourself practicing in the next 10 years? What factors are important, or what things are important to you with regards to schools? Big classes, smaller classes, as far as, like, you know, NYU has over 300 students per class. Right after that is Tufts University up in Boston, 225 or so students in a class, versus schools like a Harvard, where there's like 40 people, or even a Meharry, that's maybe 60 or 70 people. All those types of things. These are the types of things you have to consider and more when you're looking at schools, so that you can determine how many schools that fit your list of things you're looking for, how many schools you come up with. Student Dr. Malachi and student Dr. Ansley, what do you guys say?
Well, I have, when I was thinking about this question, it reminded me of when I was applying, obviously. I had a list, like you were just talking about, Dr. Darwin, and my list consisted of 4 sentences for each school, right? And those sentences included reasonable reasons as to why I wanted to apply to this school. And if I couldn't come up with 4 sentences of a reasonable reasons of why I wanted to apply to that school, I scratched it off of my list. So an example would be like, if you want to live in the city or in like a rural community, then you'll write a sentence about that. Or if you're considering time in clinic, because I know some schools give students exposure to clinic coming in first year and maybe assisting or something. And in other schools, you may have to wait second year or third, or to your third year to get into the clinic. So considering things like of those natures, were included in my 4 sentences that I wrote for every single school. That helped me narrow down my list.
That was a great technique, student Dr. Malachi. I kind of went a different route, but similar to what Dr. Hayes said is, where do you see yourself, ultimately living? And also, where do you see yourself being for the next 4 years of dental school? So for me, it was, I didn't have any family on the West Coast of the country or anywhere down South. So I was pretty limited right off the bat. I wanted to stay somewhere in the Midwest or Northeast if possible. So I think you just want to be a little bit selfish in knowing where you want to live or ultimately end up, and also where you feel like you would be most comfortable. I knew that if I went somewhere out west, that it'd be difficult for me to go back home if I needed to during breaks, because obviously flights are expensive. And I think what Malachi also suggested is, definitely take into consideration the curriculum at the schools that you're applying to. So for instance, if you know in your heart that you want to probably end up doing general dentistry, maybe a school that doesn't have every specialty added may be a consideration for you. Not saying that other schools don't, I guess, train you in a way to become a competent dentist, because they all do, they're all accredited. But, just take those things into consideration. Like at the University of Michigan, there's like part of our curriculum is built in to like do research. So if research isn't something that you necessarily want to do, maybe look at schools who are more clinically heavy based. But with that being said, just open your horizon and also like research every school, and don't leave any doors closed.
And I just wanted to add to that, because I know the question is also related to the number. I know you guys want to hear a number, right? How many? Dr. Darwin, the question is, how many? How many should I consider? So I will tell you now, this is 20 years ago. I'm not going to, actually it's a little bit more than 20 years ago. But I had a preference for the University of Maryland because I was living in Maryland at the time. And I also had like 4 classmates from undergrad that just so had, actually 5 classmates from undergrad that were actually at Maryland. And Maryland at the time did not require a prerequisite called organic chemistry. So Maryland was number 1 of like 5 schools that I applied to for those reasons. So I had 5 schools. Malachi and Ansley, how many schools did you guys have on your list?
I ended up applying to 10 schools. And I will honestly say that should probably be the max. I wouldn't personally apply to more than 10 schools, especially if you have like a solid GPA and a pretty decent DAT score. And I'm quite sure we'll get into that discussion later, but I'll say no more than 10 and potentially no less than 3.
Yes, and for me, I applied to 7 schools. I can't really put a number on how many not to apply to or how few to apply to. Again, it's just based on who you are as an applicant. But I had friends anywhere from applying to 3 schools all the way up to like 15. So.
There you go. There's a range of numbers and the reasons why. So hopefully that helps the person who asked that question.
Thank you so much for all that good insight. Okay, the next question, we're starting off somewhat light. What study materials do you recommend I invest in? So in terms of like boot camp, destroyer, things like that.
Great question. I'll start it off with this. Everything's not for everybody. Everybody is not for everything. All right, Dr. Hayes, what the heck does that mean? It's late. I don't want to hear no riddles late at night. Some people and some students, 2 of which are on this call, will tell you that they had a preference for 1 or 2 study materials or prep courses, and that was it. Some students will say, nope, I liked A, materials for the PAT and I use B for chemistry and the science section. And I may have used some practice tests from C to go over all these different things. So students that I've talked to that have gotten into dental school have shared that and similar stories with regards to how they prepared and what they used. I would definitely say that you will I strongly recommend that you use some type of prep course, right? Another thing that's been very popular is CHAD videos, right? CHAD videos, as far as helping break down some of the reasons why some of the processes in biology and chemistry, and that'll help you study. And I've got some colleagues down in North Carolina that mentor pre-dental students and helping them prepare for the DAT. These students are using this thing called Schwamms. Schwamms, oh God, what is Schwamms? It's basically like Cliff Notes. I don't know if you guys even heard of Cliff Notes before, but Cliff Notes, study notes, yeah, okay, good. I'm not that old. Study notes, but it's called Schwamms, and they have like all of these problems, biology problems, chemistry problems, and they break down each and every step of these problems, and they have explanations, they have formulas. You have to look it up online. It's called Schwamms Science Study, something like that. All of those are ways to help you with preparing for the DAT. Now, Ansley and Malachi are going to tell you something similar, but also something different based on their own study style, what they were familiar with, but most importantly, what they felt helped them the most.
Yeah, that was some great advice, Dr. Darwin. I would honestly say, for me, I definitely stuck with, I started off using DAT Booster, and a little plug to Booster. I will say I didn't use them for like studying for the DAT solely because I just didn't like the platform. But they have great resources in regards to their statistics for schools. So if you go on Google and you type in DAT Booster, dental school statistics, they have a section where they break down like the cost, the in-state, out-of-state residents, et cetera, which is really phenomenal. I used it religiously. But in regards to the DAT, I stuck with DAT Bootcamp, and I will say Bootcamp and Ari, the team over there, really helped me out. I was able to get a 30 in the organic chemistry section, I believe because of the organic chemistry, like the booklet, the printout stuff that they had.
Wait a minute. You said what? You said a 30.
30. Yes, sir.
Now for people who are listening and watching, they may not understand what a 30, what that number the significance behind that number. Should we tell them?
I think we should.
So, well, I'll let you tell them since you got the 30, because I definitely didn't get no 30 on any.
So 30 in any section of the DAT is the top score you can get in that section. Which basically means you essentially got close to all the questions right. I'm not 100% sure because I don't know, but I'm quite sure there was like one or two questions that I missed. Nevertheless, I found that for DAT Bootcamp, the questions were they're similar in terms of like writing, and they take the time to actually update their program as you go through, and their schedule really helped me out. So I would say just make sure that you have a great schedule. I use Ari's schedule for the most part. I modified it a little bit, and they have like chat videos, like Dr. Darwin was saying, inside of the actual schedule that you can go through and actually watch the reinforced material. So for me, that truly helped, and it was really a reason why I scored as well as I did on the DAT. I tried to use DAT Destroyer books to supplement like GenChem and Orgo a little bit, but I found that it was essentially really wasting my time. Like if you don't have a strong like background in it, then I would suggest it. I mean, it's more practice questions, so it's not bad, but I wouldn't waste the extra money on that. I would just stick with one source and just use it to its fullest capacity.
And going off of that, I used iPrep and Bootcamp, so a mixture of both of those. iPrep is a test-based program or a study-based program out of Florida, I believe. And it was really helpful for me for all the science sections, so bio, gen chem, orgo. And then I supplemented that with DAT Bootcamp, and I really like that test prep for the PAT and also reading comprehension.
Yeah, and keep in mind, there are going to be some of your classmates or people that graduated last year from your school that are in dental school now that may still have some of the study prep materials that you can either buy off them or barter somehow. But you definitely must use something or some things to get yourself prepared, especially practice tests, old practice tests, and time practice tests, because you want to simulate that environment that you're going to be taking the test as you are developing that skill and preparing for the DAT day. So hopefully that helps.
Honestly, I will really say that was one of the most important things for me. I think that when I sat down and took my first full-length practice test, I had it fixated in my mind that it wasn't going to be that bad because I was so used to studying for 7 hours straight. And I'm like, okay, this is a chill day. I get to just take a 4-hour test, it'll be all right. But when you actually sitting there and you're taking the test and you're using all of your brain power at one time to just focus so much, it's really draining. So I think just drilling and practicing, doing those practice tests over and over. I think I took 4 or 5 full-length practice tests before I actually sat down for the DAT. And it was something that really, really helped me out. And also, I don't know if you all have a partnership with DAT Bootcamp or not, but I'm in contact with Ari, and he told me any SNDA or any programs that I encounter to reach out to him and let him know that you guys have a chapter and you guys can get a discount code.
Get that. Any little bit helps as far as your preparation and costs for it, because yes, you do have to invest. You will have to invest in this process. There's no way of getting around it. Nothing's free. The applications cost money. You have some supplemental things that you have to submit as well. And not even to mention preparing for your interviews, going to the interviews, and of course, preparing for the DAT as well.
Hey, this is Dr. Darwin. Are you looking for some mentorship, some accountability, some help with getting all of this application and getting into dental school and getting into residency and then just your life as a new dentist? Look, I'm having monthly, twice a month, live coaching sessions and office hours so we can talk about all of that. I don't want you to struggle with the application process. I don't want you to struggle with getting ready for interviews. I don't want you to struggle about what list of schools and programs to apply to. We talk about all of that in our group, our monthly group called Dr. Darwin On Demand. Dr. Darwin On Demand. Check it out down below here. And then also, if you're interested and you want to get that help so you don't have to struggle anymore, so that you can get some mentorship, some accountability, and some help, hit this link right here. Hit that link right there so we can get you signed up and enrolled today. Today. Your future starts today. And I'm here to help you. This is Dr. Darwin. And join my members-only community called Dr. Darwin On Demand. Look forward to seeing you soon, okay? Now back to this episode. Enjoy.
And just as a quick follow-up, this is a one answer type of question. How long is a practice exam? As in
4 hours, 30 minutes.
4 hours, okay, gotcha.
Practice exam is you practicing for the exam, and the exam is 3-4 hours. So yeah, I mean, there also are times where people will just practice or take a live exam, practice exam just for a particular section as well, right? You can do that. But again, you're going to have to build that muscle to prepare yourself for this type of exam. It's similar, but it's a lot different than the exams that we take or have taken in our science classes and things, because this is all at once, right? There is no, you take a section and you come back a day later and you take another section and you come back and then you take the perceptual ability, then you come back. No, my brother, it's all at once. So you have to really, you want to build that muscle as you're preparing and taking those practice exams.
The next question is, can I take the DAT after I apply to dental school, or do you need to take the DAT before you even think about applying?
That's a good question. And I'm laughing because I personally would have not even thought about applying to school, submitting an application and not have a DAT score. And I say that because you have an incomplete application. Dental school applications, there are 10,000 people every year, and it's probably a little bit more than that, but on average, there's about 10,000 people every year that apply to dental school. Some for the first time, some for the second or third time. In addition to that, you've got 65, 66, almost 70 schools getting at least 200 to 300 applications every year, right? And most of those schools have positions, like I said, as small as far as 40 or 50 in a class to over 300 in a class at NYU. So the admissions committee at these schools do a lot of work. And I've been on, as a student, I've been on the admissions committees, and also as an alum, I've been on the admissions committees. And I will tell you, it's a lot of applications to go through. One of the things as a candidate is you do not want to have an incomplete application. Incomplete as in something's missing, letter of recommendation, something's missing, DAT scores. Why is it important to have a complete application? Is because as the applications come in and the committee starts looking at them, they want to look at complete applications, because if they have to take your application and put it over to the side because it's incomplete, they may forget about it. Not only that, now there's 200 more applications that they have to look at and that they're going to be focused on that are complete. So don't put yourself at a disadvantage by not taking the DAT before you submit your application, regardless of what the school says that you can do it. If anything, take the DAT, submit your application, and then if you feel like you need to take it again, take it again. But I would strongly recommend that you do not submit your application without a DAT score or without notifying certain schools of your intended DAT test date. It may be in conjunction with, right around the same time that you're getting ready to apply and submit your application. It might be at the same time that you're getting ready to take the DAT. But again, you don't know when the committee is going to open up your application. You don't know. And what you don't want them to do is open your application and it's incomplete. You don't have a DAT score. Unless, again, you're at a school, you're applying to a school that says they don't take the DAT or they're not accepting the DAT. That's a whole different story. But I know the schools that Malachi just got into, I think they require the DAT. The school that Ansley's at right now, they require the DAT. So, and I'm curious to hear what Malachi and Ansley says as well with regards to taking the DAT before you apply or after you apply, or what their thought process is.
Yeah, honestly, I'm really laughing because I did exactly what Dr. Darwin said not to do. And that was unintentional. Because I just recently I got out of the hospital in like March, April, and I was in recovery. I had a lot of like stuff going on during that time, so my DAT had to be pushed back. But one thing I did was, before I ended up submitting my application, I reached out to all the schools I applied to in like June. So around like June the 10th, I reached out to all my schools and I let them know what my situation was, and that my DAT date was scheduled for July so-and-so. I think it was July like the 20th or 30th. So I let them know what day my DAT was scheduled for. And that's the thing. If you're taking your DAT after submitting your applications, then you're putting all your eggs in one basket, because look, all your money is spent. There's no refunds on that. So you got to make sure that you're preparing for the DAT as best as you can. And that was the position that I was in. So for that remaining month, or for those 2 months, I studied for the DAT for about 7 weeks. I knew that, all my money was spent on my applications already. So it motivated me more to study harder. I ended up submitting my application on, I actually have the date right here, on June the 19th. So I submitted all my applications on June 19th. Again, I took my DAT on July the 29th, and my scores weren't verified until like August, like the 10th or 11th, somewhere around that week. And to my surprise, the turnaround was pretty quick. I actually heard from Columbia University like the next week, and they invited me for an interview, and I was super shocked. And as a side note, I was still able to get into all the 10 schools I applied to, except for 2 that I didn't interview at. They offered me an interview, but I didn't go. So all the 8 schools I applied to. So I would say, if you get in a predicament where you're like literally forced to take the DAT after you submit your applications, then definitely communicate. But the advice Dr. Darwin gave was golden. Make sure you get that DAT out of the way before you apply. It just alleviates a lot of burden on yourself.
And let's be clear, what you just explained was a special circumstance that happened.
100%.
Special circumstance. You had an illness, or you had some type of thing that you that took priority, was literally life and death. And, which was brilliant, what you guys must do constantly, and you communicated with your schools. You let them know, you got in front of it to let them know what they were expecting when they got your application. So when they got your application, they already knew, oh, that's right, Malachi, right? He did say he had to have his DAT postponed because of X, Y, and Z, versus they get in your application, opening up and start to look at it and then put it down and go to the next one.
Exactly.
Don't do that. So we're talking about a special circumstance that happened. Most of us don't and will not, God forbid, have a special circumstance.
Yeah, you don't want.
What do you think, Ansley? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I second what you gentlemen just provided to these students. I was in a position where, so this is unique too. I was in a position where I was retaking my DAT. So my new DAT score was not in when I submitted my application. And so that was unique because they already had a score to kind of like, gauge where I was at in the application cycle or whatnot. But they also did, I'm sure most schools did want to see that next score. So if you are to be in that position, definitely go ahead and submit your application. And obviously they'll already have your old DAT score in the books. But just like Malachi said, during this process, you want to be communicating to these schools and letting them know like where you're at, what you plan on doing. And it's also in the ad says you could also add a little excerpt or a note in there letting them know when your next DAT exam is scheduled for. So it's up to you to make sure that you're communicating at all points when will you be uploading your scores, when you'll be taking your exam, and just making sure everything is good in that regard.
And just to add to that, a place where you can communicate that in your application is in your personal statement. You may need to put something, a little blurb in your personal statement of purpose about maybe retaking the DAT or your date for taking the DAT, and just making sure that that blurb coincides with the time that you're actually pushing the button to submit your application. So that's a location in your application that you can communicate that, in addition to reaching out to the schools when you submit. So great question about the DAT. Hopefully you guys will have learned the importance of why taking it and before you submit your applications versus doing it later after you submit it.
Okay, this next question says, what advice do you have for pre-dental students who are transitioning to the heavy workload for the first year of dental school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm sorry. I'm laughing, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm laughing, but this is key. This is interesting. Well, it's key, and this will apply to Malachi, who's getting ready to start, and I'm sure Ansley will be able to support and have some comments. The advice is for pre-dental students that are transitioning to the heavy workload of dental school.
Yeah, specifically the first year. So as a D1
Yeah.
student, what is your life like if you like even have one like that?
Well, wait a minute. That's two different questions. You said, what's the advice that pre-dental students who are transitioning to their heavy workload, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, before you even start D1, the advice is go have some fun and party right now. And if you don't party, whatever you do for fun, whatever you like to do for entertainment, because when you start D1 year, Malachi and everyone else that's on the call, and Ansley can chime in as well. When you start D1, life, as you know, is done. You are done. You are straight done. Your nickname will be Fork, because we're going to stick a fork in you. You're going to be done. There is no time for anything like really, really fun except for sleep. And even that's not going to be fun, because you're going to be worried about, did I study enough? Did I go over this? D1 year is no joke.
Like Dr. Hayes suggested, definitely take some time out for yourself in between your gap, between undergrad or wherever you're coming from and dental school. I know some dental schools across the country, including my school, we start in the summertime. So some people may graduate in April and begin in June. So, it's a quick turnaround, and you want to make sure that you're doing all the things that you love to do before you start your time in dental school, whether that's traveling, hanging out with friends, enjoying time with your family. Just do those things that really do make you happy. And that's not saying that in dental school you won't have that opportunity, but it'll be fewer instances when you are able to engage in things you love to do outside of the curriculum. And I'm just saying this because right now I'm in 27 and a half credits, and sometimes it does feel like you're drinking water out of a fire hydrant. But with that being said, you are learning things that you love to do, so you're learning about the dentistry, you're in pre-clinic, you're drilling on teeth. So some of those hours aren't always a grind. Sometimes it is a fun experience. But when you're in those didactic courses and you're studying for, like Malachi said, maybe 7 hours a day, you do sometimes feel like, oh man, like how am I able to do this? But the good thing is that, you will be able to do it, and you are going to do it. I know it's cliche to say, but people have done it before you, and there's going to be people doing it after you. So keep that in mind. It's not too difficult that you can't do it. You just have to really stay motivated. I find that hanging out with friends, finding friends within your class is an important thing to do, because for some people in my class, they've never been to Michigan in their life, and they don't have family here. So their cohort, the upperclassmen, faculty, whoever they are, whoever they are to them, they become family, right? So it's lean on the people that you care about, and try to do the things that you enjoy doing. So for instance, in my class, our D1 class, we just had flag football this past fall semester. So that was an opportunity for us to do things outside of dentistry, outside of school that, took a little bit of our time. Go to the gym, read that book that you like reading. And overall, just, work hard and study hard. The transition, believe it or not, it's not the coursework, it's more so the amount of classes you're taking, right? So it's only so many ways you can teach biochemistry. And I'm pretty sure all across the country, biochemistry is one of the first classes that you'll be taking. So just keep that in mind. And if you have any specific questions, please let me know.
Have fun now. That's what I was saying. Enjoy life, explore, do things that you haven't done, because your first year of dental school, you will not have the time to do such. I know it sounds kind of upsetting, but this is not undergrad anymore. And it's not even regular grad school. Dental school, there's nothing like dental school at all. Med school is not even like dental school. It's like, the analogy is drinking water, not from a cup, but from a fire hydrant. And student Dr. Malachi is laughing because we've had this discussion. We've talked about it. And I mention it all the time. You're drinking water. Well, you're not even drinking water. The water's drinking you. But you're trying to drink water from a fire hydrant during this period of time. It's just so much information. There's so many different things to learn, even if you're a science major. And then you have to add on to that all the manual dexterity and the lab work that you're learning how to do. For many people working with their hands for the first time. So a lot of long hours studying new concepts, but also a lot of long hours being creative and being, bringing out the artist of within you that you didn't even know that you have. So not a lot of time to hang out and do other things that maybe you typically would do in undergrad. You will have to manage time so that time so that you don't have to worry about time managing you. So the part of the transition is enjoying, celebrating the fact that you got into dental school, because that is the easy part at this stage. Getting into dental school is easy. Now you got to get through, and getting through starts off with the D1 year. So that's my advice. Have fun now before classes start.
Thank you so much for that one. And for the last question, this is kind of like a prelogue to what we want to do with SNDA. But is there anything we can do specifically to prepare ourselves for the interview process into dental school?
You said, is there anything?
Yeah,
anything
you can do anything specific.
Well, the most specific thing is to realize that it's not one thing; it's a whole bunch of things. Right? It's a whole bunch of things, and Malachi can share, and Ansley can share as well. But one of the most important things is to know your resume or your CV. Right? Very, very important that you know it back and forth to the point where you're comfortable talking about what you've done and what those experiences will allow you to bring to the school that you're applying to. You also need to know about the school. You need to have more of an in-depth understanding of that school, because one of the questions that may come up is, why Maryland? Why Tufts? Why BU? Why UCLA? Why do you want to go to Meharry? Why? And you've applied to 10 schools, right? So, but why do you want to come to our school? That's where you have to have those 4 sentences that student Dr. Malachi mentioned as to the reasons why you're applying to this school. It could be because the school is known to put out specialists, or maybe it's the small school size, or maybe it's the school doesn't have a lot of specialty programs and graduates are exposed to a lot of specialty techniques and experiences that you may find as appealing, things that you may want. So you really have to know why that school as part of your preparation. Also, you have to prepare yourself in feeling comfortable and talking in front of people or even the camera, right? 'Cause most of these interviews now are still virtual, and which is great for several candidates, or a lot of candidates, because it's saving some money on having to travel all over the place, right? And that's helpful. But there are certain techniques and things that you have to learn to be able to do in person, just like you have to do them in front of the camera or in front of a virtual type of preparation or presentation. All of those things are key, very key. You need to see what you look like when you're talking to people, right? Your body language, your eyes, your hands, and how you are coming across to the people across the table or across the screen that you're bonding with. Also, you got to find some things about the school that you like. And also, you have to have questions. Yes, you have to have questions. Because remember, just as much as the schools pick you, you pick the school too. Like student Dr. Malachi, he had 10 schools, interviews, 8 schools, acceptance. Last time I checked, you can't go to more than one dental school at the same time. So you got to pick. You got to pick. So those interviews at the schools are for you too, because you will have to come down to making a decision when you get multiple acceptances at schools. And so you want to use that time at the interview to get to know the individuals, but also have your list of questions. So you have to have a list of questions for your interview. So those are some of the things that I think are important in preparation for interview day. Student Dr. Malachi, student Dr. Ansley, what do you guys think?
I would, definitely agree with everything that was said. Just reminiscing on my interview process, I will honestly say the 8 schools I interviewed at, when I interviewed at UPenn and Columbia University, those were somewhat my most intimidating interviews per se. Not because like the people there were mean or anything like that, but because they're Ivy League schools. So when I was going into those interviews, I was thinking like, dude, I'm this dude from PG County. Like, why am I here in these interviews with these people? But I quickly realized that one of the most important things you can do in your interviews is really be personable. I had a talk with the dean at Columbia University, and he told me flat out, he said, you know what, Malachi? He said, you were the only one that was in this room that actually said good morning to me. And we were speaking about his home in Florida for like 5 to 10 minutes before the interviews even started. And that stuck with him throughout the whole process of the interview. So when you're in a Zoom room or something like that, don't hesitate to be that person to ask everyone how everyone's doing or ask where everyone's from. Because when you break the ice like that, they show like, hey, this is a person who's personable and is confident in, being here and is not super nervous. Of course, you're going to be nervous, but it's not so nervous to the point where like it's paralyzing and you're causing yourself to, lose points on your interview because you're just so paralyzed by the fear of you being in an interview that you don't say anything or you're sounding somewhat disingenuous or anything of that nature. So I have a whole bunch of tips on interview stuff. So if anyone wants to reach out to me about the interview process at certain schools or how to best prepare, definitely do.
Student Dr. Ansley was going to share some of his experiences with regards to prepping for the interview as well.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hayes. I just wanted to reiterate to the USNDA that we will be hosting mock interviews with the SNDA here at UMich.
Good.
And just yes, and I just wanted to throw out there that there are like different interviewing techniques that schools offer. So I know here at Michigan we do multi MMIs, we call them multi-mini interviews. And it's a little bit unconventional, if you will. than basically just the Zoom person-to-person interviews that some schools do hold. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Some schools just do personal interviews with someone on the interview committee where you're talking to somebody and they're looking at your application or not, and they're asking you about yourself and why dentistry, those type of questions. And then the MMIs are a little bit more, they ask like certain ethical questions, if you will, and it's not really related to your application at all. So that's just something to throw out there to you all now to get you thinking about. And I could find a quick link of what an MMI is, but I just wanted to, raise your ears to the different type of interview styles that schools have.
Yeah, and some of these interviews, most of the interviews, they're trying to do what? They're trying to find out more about who you are as an individual, right? They have your application, they've seen your scores, they read your personal statement, they know that you're number 5 in your class or you're number 30 in the class, they know your DAT score. Okay, great. But who is Darwin Hayes as a candidate? Who is Kamal as a candidate? Who is Nisha as a candidate? Like, who are they? They see everything on paper. Now they get to see you in front and they want to know how you present yourself. So if you're not used to talking, if you're not used to having conversations with people, if you're not used to finding interesting things to help continue the conversation that you're having with somebody, if you're not used to doing all that stuff, you need to practice and you need to get used to it very quickly, because in addition to dentistry being an art and a science, it's also about communication and being able to communicate with those that you're helping, right? Your patients, your people in your community, who know nothing about dentistry except for it hurts and Dr. Wright hurt me. He didn't give me enough Novocaine or enough anesthesia, or Dr. Hayes must have done that root canal wrong because I'm still feeling pain. All these different things have nothing to do with the science and the technology behind what we do. It's more or less how you interact and talk with the people that you're serving, right? And talking with them in terms that are not technical terms, but things that they can relate to, and having enough cultural competence to be able to share information and also receive information and listen to what they're saying, or maybe even what they're not saying, all of which are part of communication, right? So that is important to be able to display and demonstrate during the interview, because schools are looking for candidates and future students that they're going to be training that represent the school, not only just during the 4 years that you're there, but later on as alums as well. All of that is important to note. So that's why you have to have questions. That's why you need to be prepared to handle not only information about your application, but also what would you do type of scenarios, right? Whether it's something related to other students you see that might be cheating. And yes, cheating does go on in dental school. It just happened today and it's going to happen tomorrow. Trust and believe. How do you handle those situations, right? How do you handle those ethical situations? All of those things are important. And that schools want to at least possibly have some idea as to how you are going to represent the school and also how you would handle it as well. So I hope that's been helpful as well.
I have a question real quick. So there's like the like all the prerequisites that like dental schools have, like biology, organic chemistry, and such. So let's say like you apply like the summer before your senior year, and let's say like you have like 1 or 2 classes like prerequisites that you haven't completed yet. Would dental schools look at that like an incomplete application, or like how do they view it?
I can honestly speak from experience in regards to this question. I'm currently in my Physics 2 class right now. That is actually a prereq for University of Maryland School of Dentistry. So even though you're applying to a school, you just have to have those classes that you're taking planned out on the ASDAS application. So you don't have to necessarily have a grade for it yet, but just have it planned out in your coursework, and make sure that the schools can see that you plan on taking it and what semester you plan on taking that course.
Other questions from the floor? Going once, going twice. So I guess that's the end of part 1.
I do want to reiterate that there will be a part 2, and hopefully we can have more students in attendance so that we have more questions. I look forward to seeing Malachi again, hopefully Ainsley again if you have availability. I know dental school is really crazy right now, so I hope to see you guys back for part 2 as well.
If student Dr. Ansley can be here, and he's in dental school, and he's in the toughest year of dental school, then we can certainly get more pre-dents here. Again, the information is only as good if you're listening to it and watching it and asking questions and engaged in it. So for those that did show up, great. And hopefully we can get some more people to join, because there's a difference from hearing it live than hearing it a second time, maybe via recording, but also you get an opportunity to ask a question live, especially as you're listening to things. Something may come up, right? Something may trigger in your mind as you're thinking and listening to the information that's coming to you that may spark a question that you have. But that only happens if you're listening live. You can ask that question live as well. So we will plan a time where we can do part 2 and increase the participation.